Hi, my name is Rebecca, and I'm from the Adult Tutoring Program at the Literacy Center of West Michigan, and I am the Family Literacy Coordinator. And today I want to talk about family literacy. So I'm going to share some ideas that you can use for your tutoring with your adult learner. But the ultimate goal with this video is to provide you with some ideas that you can teach to your learner, you can discuss with your learner that they can hopefully try out in their home with their children. So helping their children develop literacy skills. So really helping your learner to be better equipped as their child's first teacher. Okay, let's get into that. I want to start, if you're on our webpage and you click on volunteer here at the top, and if you scroll down to where it says educational resources, you'll find we have a spreadsheet with some ideas, list of resources for online tutoring with some ideas for virtual tutoring. And this spreadsheet, you'll see there are different tabs at the bottom with resources related to different purposes, different goals. So if you click on family literacy, you'll see the resource I'm going to talk about today called Unite for Literacy. That's listed down near the bottom of the spreadsheet. I also want to mention we have a couple other videos where we've talked about Wonderopolis, and we've talked about Tumble Books and the International Children's Digital Library. So check those videos out as well for other family literacy ideas. But if you go down to the bottom, as I mentioned, and you click on Unite for Literacy, that's the resource that I'm going to highlight in this video. And I'm going to show you a couple things you can do with some of the books there. So this is Unite for Literacy. They have free books with narration and pictures that you could do for virtual tutoring. You could either, right now, you could do screen share over Zoom, or if in the future you're sitting together at the same computer, you certainly could pull up this site and do tutoring there as well. So there's lots of books, and you can see we have animals, community, family, lots of different topics. So I chose 3 different books, and I want to talk briefly about, of course, you can read that book with your learner. They can practice reading it, but then thinking as well of some expansion activities for your learner to try at home with their children, again, to develop their literacy skills. So the first book, What Colors Do You Eat? So you'll see that the books here on Unite for Literacy, they have an audio option. So if we get into the book, we can play the book.
I eat red tomatoes. I eat yellow bananas.
Anyway, you can continue to go through the book, but there's certainly a lot of things that you could talk with your learner about related to fruits and colors and food. But ultimately, again, you want to help them think of ideas that they can do at their home. A couple ideas that I thought of, they could sit with their children and write out all the colors they could think of, or all the colors mentioned in this book, red, yellow, green, and then try to imagine perhaps the foods, but even just objects in their house, and put them in the different categories. So for every object, what color it is, and write it under that column. Another thing that your learner and their children could try would be maybe you could encourage them to teach their children to make a book. So let's highlight the color green. Let's make a book all about things that are green. Or even if you want to make it more challenging, things that are green that start with the letter G, perhaps. I thought of grass, guava, gourd. So the child could draw a G, and on each page have a different object and make a picture and color it. And then they could staple it, put it together, and say, this is my green book. Certainly you could talk about each of the colors and think of rhyming words. Rhyming is such an important literacy skill to develop. So what rhymes with green? Let's think of words that rhyme with green. Green, mean, machine. And they could ask their learners to think of, their children to think of different colors and what rhymes with each of those words. Yeah, lots of things you could try with colors and food. Another book that I found on Unite for Literacy is called Pump, Jump, Thump. And this book, obviously you can see from the title, we have rhyming. And as I just mentioned, rhyming is really important. And this book, if you go through it, Pump, my heart has a strong beat. Obviously with your learner, this might be a way to talk more about body parts, human anatomy. The book mentions heart, legs, muscles. You could do some different things with that with your learner. But your learner could then, after reading this book with their children, could talk about rhyming words, certainly. You could play a game where you throw a ball back and forth, where the learner and their children throw a ball back and forth. One person says a word and they throw the ball to the other person and they need to say a word that rhymes with that one. There's lots of different activities you could try with rhyming with a ball. Also, of course, pump, jump, thump. These are verbs, action verbs. So you could talk more about different verbs that describe action that rhyme, like go, row, or know. And you could encourage your learner to talk with their children and make sentences with these words. What do you know? Where do you want to go? Things like that. And obviously, rhyming is great too. You can have your learner encourage their children to look around the house and find objects that rhyme. Okay, here's a plate. Let's think of a word that rhymes with plate. Mate. What's a word that rhymes with TV? Bumblebee. Anyway, rhyming is great. So if you talk with your learner about rhyming and teach them why it's important to talk with their children about rhyming, I think you'll see there's lots of activities that they could try with their children. A last book that I found is Picture a Story, and this pretty clearly lends itself to different activities they can do with their children, discussion topics they can have with their children. So there's different pictures, and in the book, try thinking about what's happening and make up your own story from this picture. So this is great for children. Obviously have wild imagination, so they can imagine different things. If you could fly like a bird, how high would you go and what would you eat? So the children could even just choose one of these questions from this book and maybe write it out or draw some pictures of what they think they would see if they were a bird. With your learner, this book certainly has conditional phrases. So you could review some grammar about conditional phrases. It's a bit more advanced grammar. This book, as you can see, is a little more complicated than the other two books. But I hope that gives you some ideas of things that you could do with your learner and teach them and talk with them about literacy development for their children in their home.